Welcome back to Burning River Bushcraft. With the recent natural disasters that's been all over the news, I thought I would revisit this 70 serving food kit from Valley Food Storage and turn the extra space on the top of the bucket into more of an emergency kitchen. If this is the kind of thing you like to see, go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave me a comment in the comment box, and ring the bell to be notified of my latest videos. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Burning River Bushcraft. I also teach outdoor classes at outdoorcore.com. I went over this 70 serving food kit in a previous video, and I can put a link in the description below for that. But what this is food for a family of 5 for an entire week. And as an individual, this will get you through a month. So this is an entire kit. This is not just a smattering of meals. This is breakfast, lunch, dinners, and snacks. And the food packets kind of look like this. And there's a variety of food that are not always going to be the same, but it's going to be the same concept. You're going to have set breakfast, you're going to have set lunches, you're going to have set dinners, and the snacks are going to be a little bit different. So this is a great system. I love the fact that I can grab and take this out the door as emergency food. So I wouldn't consider this to be an entire food storage system for a person, and it shouldn't be. You should have canned food, you should have dried food, you should have food in your freezer. But if there's a flood or if there's a fire or if you really need to bug out real quick, this is the kind of stuff you want to have. The shelf life is like a long time on this stuff. And it's complete meals, but you do need some things to help you prepare this. And that's what we're going to use the space in this bucket for. So this is the bucket as it comes from the factory. And I've had this out and packed and repacked several times, so it probably was neater when it came right from the factory. But there's about 6 inches of extra storage in here. And you can use that to pack extra food. So you could take more of those meals and layer them in there and make this bucket last even longer. You could also put drink mixes, all kinds of items that would be handy to put in here. But this really doesn't do any good without a heat source and without water. So we're going to take this 6 inches and essentially make a complete food kit where I can open this up, have the food, but then also be able to prepare the food. Now what I'm not going to be doing is just turning this into an emergency kit, emergency survival kit. I'm not putting a tarp in here. I'm not putting flares or fishing line or anything that is not immediately food related. I want to be able to open one of these buckets up and prepare food wherever I'm at in whatever situation I'm in. Now, if you've got multiple of these buckets, which you probably should have, and you've got one set up with your stove and with all the items that you're going to need to help you prepare this food, and the other one's just food, you might want to mark that. You might want to make sure you know your alpha bucket, your main, your number one bucket that you're going to walk out the door if you've only got room for one. And that's what I've got this bucket right here set up as. This is my one bucket. If I'm leaving with one, it's going to be this. And I'm going to have a bug out bag and survival gear with me in addition to this. This does not help me build a shelter or make any other camp projects. I don't have first aid kits in here. This is just dealing with food, but I want to make sure I designate which bucket is which. And probably the best way to do that would be to set up a full-size camp kitchen. So if I had a full bucket that was only a stove and a full set of pots and silverware and dishes, that would probably be the best use of a bucket like this. But again, if you can only grab one, that's what we're going to set this up as today. That's going to be our alpha bucket to get us out the door in an emergency. Everything fits in here with the lid on, and I've still got space. I could poke things in different areas, and I really didn't specifically handpick items that were going to be the perfect items for this bucket. What I did is I used items that I just had around the house, and they were not my main line camping items with just one exception. What I don't want to have is if I only have one stove and I use it to camp with, and sometimes it's in my emergency bucket, that's not going to work out real well for me. This would be a great thing to put extra items if you've got a backup or a spare, or if you upgraded. If you upgraded to a newer stove or to a newer cook set, your old one would fit in here with no issues. Now, I'll show you the item that's specifically in here that I use a lot, and I just don't have a duplicate of that. I can make a cheaper version. It's quite a bit bigger. If you're interested in that, just leave me a comment in the comment box, and I will go into that in a separate video. So I still do have quite a bit of room in here. But first thing out of here is just going to be a small ditty bag. And the reason I go with a small bag like this, if I just had lighters and different items poked down to the bucket, they're going to be all the way at the bottom of the bucket when I need it. And if I'm searching for something in the bottom, say I wanted a specific meal, or I was looking for a snack or a breakfast and it just happened to be all the way at the bottom, and I start pulling things out, I don't want to start leaning stuff and laying stuff around and then misplace it. So with a bag like this, everything's going to have a home. So the first thing I've got in here is a knife. There's about a million reasons to have a knife with you, and you've probably got several on you anyway. This is just an inexpensive fixed blade knife. Probably the main thing I'm going to be doing with this would be processing wood if I was using my biofuel stove, and opening packages. I also have a bottle of camp soap. So hygiene is of the utmost importance when you're camping, and if you were bugging out or in an actual emergency situation, it's even that much more important. So I've got a couple items here in this bottle. I've got a couple of fork spoon combos. Any silverware is going to work. You do not need to go out and buy specialty camping stuff for this. You can go to thrift stores, just get regular silverware would be more than sufficient. This one's got a can opener and a bottle opener, and there is a couple different size wrenches in here for a camp stove. So this one's kind of nice to have, but not something you need to run out for. I've got just a regular Bic lighter, a full fire kit with a lighter and storm matches and ferro rods. That should be in your survival kit. That should be with you. This is just to pop it open, get yourself your food cooked, and go back in the bucket. So this is a dedicated lighter just for that. I also have some fire starters here. A lot of purposes for this, but it's primarily going to be used with my biofuel stove. Now, these meals require measuring, and if you choose properly, you should have a canteen and a nesting cup in your normal survival kit anyway. And most of them have marks. A lot of them don't go down small enough. You can buy these at thrift shops for probably a quarter. You can find them at garage sales. I just made this. So top is 1 cup, and then I've got half, I've got third, and I've got quarter all marked out here. So this is free, essentially, just a couple minutes of your time you can make one of these, and this will get you through any short-term emergency. So the last item in that little green bag is probably the most important, and this is my camp stove. And I want to be able to open this bucket and make my food right now. I don't want to have to go gather stuff. I don't know what situation I'm in. I might be in knee-deep water. I might be on a rooftop. You never quite know. So this Ozark Trail stove is actually pretty good for its purpose. This one runs on butane, propane canisters, as well as propane. So I have an adapter where I can run this off a standard propane bottle, 1 pound propane bottle. And this is not the most powerful stove, but it's pretty darn good, and it's pretty durable, and it's inexpensive. I think this is around $12. And I've got an igniter on here, so I don't even need to break my lighter out. So this is the propane adapter. And this propane adapter, if you were to buy this individually, costs almost as much as this stove assembly. So this is a heck of a deal, actually. And you're way more likely to find 1 pound propane cylinders in an emergency once you burn up the fuel that I've got in my bucket here. Now there is also like a base that came with this, and we're going to be using a bigger pot. So if you're using small individual sized cooking containers, this base probably isn't going to help you that much, but for the bigger 1 gallon pots, it's probably a good idea. Now inside this bucket, I have a small propane butane can. So they make these a little bit bigger. This would not be my first choice to use just because it's a little harder to find, but it screws right on here, and at least I've got fuel in the bucket. And this will give me a couple days. It's not gonna let me prepare all the food in here, but I could carry extra cylinders in another container possibly, but it's nice to have something compact where I can open the bucket and start preparing food immediately. So this is the one item that I use a lot. So this is in here temporarily. I'm not gonna leave this stored in here. I use this thing quite a bit. This is my firebox stove. And what this is this runs biofuel. So this is essentially like a twig stove. So if I was in more of an urban situation, I could break pallets down using that knife. Decorative trees are planted everywhere, and I could start breaking branches off of those. I will not run out of fuel with a bio stove like this. And the main reason I chose this one is because it's flat, and it folds completely flat. It doesn't take up a lot of space in the bucket. So I've got a grill for it, which you probably wouldn't need in this instance, but this just assembles pretty darn quick. This biofuel stove will burn and boil water just off twigs. Way more efficient than just building a fire. You're going to need a lot more wood. And you can use this if you were in an emergency where you're relocated, maybe you're in a parking lot somewhere, or you're in a less than ideal situation to have a fire. This is not an open fire. Nothing is touching the ground here. You can burn this right on a picnic table without marking the table. So this is pretty important to me. This is kind of a key thing. I can use this stove and just gather food anywhere and process this entire bucket of food. I can't carry that much fuel with me for my regular stove. So for short term, it's great. This would probably be my go-to stove anyway. If I've got time to process some firewood, I would burn it in here and reserve the fuel can until it's raining or I'm in an absolutely true emergency. This would be my first choice, and even if I didn't start with it, I'm going to end with it because I would run out of fuel before I ran out of food. So all that fits right on top here, and you see I've got a lid. So this does a couple things for me. This is the lid for my pot. Now my pot is actually at the very bottom of this bucket. And it doesn't have to be anything special. This is out of an older aluminum camp kit. So aluminum's probably not the best thing to eat off of now, but if you're eating food out of a bucket in a natural disaster, eating off aluminum for a couple days is going to be the least of your problems. So I can use this for a plate. I've also got a handle in here that I can use this as a skillet. So a canteen or a water bottle is something that should be in your personal survival kit, not in a bucket somewhere. You need to keep hydrated, or lack of water is going to get you before lack of food. But just a nesting cup like this is going to go a long way. This is going to be your bowl. Essentially, you can cook in this as well. Any of these plastic bottles are fine. Some of them have gradients on the side, so you can measure with them as well. A metal bottle is preferred just because you can cook in that as well, or heat water in this as well. But this amount of water, or however much water you're carrying, is not going to be enough to go ahead and prepare all the food that's in this bucket. So I've got a water filter in the bucket as well. So here on the bottom, I've got a water filter. This is a Sawyer Mini. And this thing does like 10,000 gallons or something silly. And you just fill this bag up and it's gonna filter it out. If this was to break, or if I did not have this, I've got my pot. So I can boil water and disinfect it, but you still gotta strain it because you're gonna have all kinds of debris in that water. So a small water filter like this and a bag is really the way to go with this. If this bag was to burst or break, this is the same threads as a standard plastic bottle. So you're able to find multiple containers. Your water or lack of water is going to get you long before lack of food. So you need this for a couple different functions. And this thing stores in the bucket about as long as the food would store if this was new. Once you use one of these, there's always going to be some water residue in it, and it will freeze and burst after that. So if it's a used one, it'll still store, you just can't let it get cold. If this one was brand new, you could put it in the bucket and leave it there until you need it. So the only thing left in this Valley food kit besides food is going to be my pot, and it's going to be way down at the bottom. So this is an old camp pot, and it fits in this bucket, and I'm just using it because of what I had. If I did not have this, you could cook out of a smaller pot. If it was an individual, you could get a metal coffee can. There are a lot of things you can do besides just running out and buying a brand new camp pot. If you hit a thrift store or a garage sale and found one and the handles weren't quite right and it wouldn't fit in here, I would just cut the handles off. But this is what you need, a large container that's you're going to be able to boil water in. And then you can also use this container to wash your dishes in. You've got the bucket for that as well. So this is worth its weight in gold, and it's going to help you eat all this food that's included in the meal kit. So the 70-piece food kit from Valley Food Storage is an outstanding idea. I love the concept. I love the food that's in here. And I can grab 2 of these and run out the door in a true emergency. And for my family, that's 2 weeks worth of food. And if this was an individual, you've got 2 months worth of food. And that is a lot. And it only makes sense to just compartmentalize everything and keep it together. So everything you need to cook and to eat this food is all in one spot. So there's a lot of different ways to set this up, but this is set up with an alpha bucket. So I have one bucket that's more important than the others because I've got my fuel and my stove and my cooking utensils and container all in one bucket. And I could go a lot crazier with that. I could stuff more items in there. If you have an interest, just leave me a comment in the comment box. I could make a specific bucket that was set up more as a camp kitchen. I could set it up as inexpensively as possible using a lot of recycled materials and things from thrift stores. And I could also set up like the ultimate style bucket, one that has got absolute top of the line equipment in it that would be the best that I could possibly assemble. So if you want to see that kind of stuff, let me know. But this is just my take on it. I like the idea of a bucket to rule them all. So I can grab that one and go. And if I happen to grab 2, that's great. I've just got more food and I can last longer. So if you're seeing these buckets and you're thinking, man, that's a pretty good idea, I could do that, but I don't have any of that stuff. I am a Valley Food affiliate. So go ahead and look in the description box and I'll give you my affiliate link. Go ahead and use that link, head over to Valley Food and order a couple of these buckets for yourself. In the future, I'm going to start doing some taste testing reviews on the Valley Food System meals. So if there is a specific meal that you want to see, go ahead and leave me a comment in the comment box. Till next time, this has been Jamie Boggs with Burning River Bushcraft. See you soon.